like clockwork. These people are so predictable. I called it as I was recording the last video. And before you watch this video, because I normally don't do back-to-back videos, but before you watch this video, if you haven't already, watch my previous video on the mention of Ed Piskor on Alex de Campi's Wikipedia page. Watch that video first if you haven't, and then come back and watch this one so you can get full context. And also, just so you can see for yourself that her page initially did have the mention of Ed Piskor, because today as of the uploading of this video, as you're going to see, the controversy section has been removed. So all references to the Ed Piskor note has been removed from Alex de Campi's page. Funny thing is, when you click on the talk section, you can see that discussion that was had regarding the controversial information. So the person here making a case for it says, I noticed that an edit referencing the late Ed Piskor's implication of Alex de Campi's, among others, role in his suicide had been removed with what seems like dubious reasoning. No second source for the direct link to Piskor's suicide note, which he wrote and posted to Google Docs. In other words, he's questioning the removal of the edit. I didn't want to inadvertently start an edit war, so I thought I would ask about the inclusion of that information here. The death and suicide note have been mentioned by several sources that are used as sources for other Wikipedia articles, including New York Times, Entertainment Weekly, etc., as well as being linked to directly from his Facebook. Therefore, I think it's valid to at least mention that Alex de Campi was named in a suicide note in which Ed Piskor declares that he was, quote-unquote, murdered by internet bullies, as well as the implication. He goes on to link the Google Doc. So now the response from the person that may have been the one to remove it says, hi, I also don't want to enter into an edit war. It's pretty passive-aggressive there. I was worried that the controversies edition is simply defamatory and may go against the libel warning at the top of this page. Ed Piskor wasn't murdered, quote-unquote. He committed suicide. That he made unfounded assertions about other people only proves that one suicidal individual made some unfounded assertions. So before I read that section, this is Ed Piskor's Wikipedia page, in which Molly Dwyer was listed because she did accuse him, and so was Molly Wright. But then it says here towards the end of that paragraph, towards the end of his note, he addressed the people who had prejudged him and spread gossip on the internet by stating, I was murdered by internet bullies. So they removed all the names of the people that Ed Piskor named from that, which is very disingenuous. So they had no problem including, and which they should have, because we don't want to hide the identity of his accusers because they made a very careless act of malice. So they should be held accountable. Then we go back to here to the person who may have previously removed the controversy section. He says, can we not recognize the irony that people who are posting about how we should be careful about making public accusations are going to rather a lot of trouble to make sure that a public accusation, one without any supporting the evidence of, this came directly from Ed Piskor himself. So it is an important note because he himself stated that she was one of the reasons why he decided to end his life. Why is it going to get posted on this page? Because her name was attached on a very important document. And yes, her name will forever be associated with the death of Ed Piskor. The person also says, further, the added text is not accurate. It built assumptions around the meaning of a single quote and expands on it without any supporting evidence. It then goes on to talk about a broader community discussion by referencing responses to his Facebook suicide post as if that's somehow a credible source of information or at all relevant to this page. So the editor here is minimizing the discussion that's being had to a few comments in Ed Piskor's final note. So we're going to pretend that the countless YouTube videos, the Bounding into Comics article, and the most recent Daily Mail article, we're going to pretend that those don't exist, that those don't contribute to the greater conversation that's being had about what happened to Piskor and the events that led to his passing and the people that were instrumental in his passing, as per his words. Now, whether you believe they were instrumental or not, the point is that he made it a point to include that in his note, and he was specific with the names he chose. We know for a fact that Ramon Villalobos hounded Piskor constantly on Twitter, up until his death. We have that documented. But the greater irony is we're okay with putting out their Molly. We're great with putting out validity in the accusations of someone like Molly Dwyer or Molly Wright, and also excusing Marcy Cipriani doxing Ed's father and not doing a credible follow-up to that story because she was just doing her job. She was just doing what she was told. But you see the great lengths that people will go to protect these people that refused any kind of accountability. And I hate to say that it has anything to do with the fact that the Campi is a woman, but it seems like a woman on the internet, especially women in comics, whether in the mainstream or the indies, have no problem weaponizing victimhood or sexuality when it comes to men, and they have no problem getting away with it. It seems like the men around them go to great lengths to protect them, lengths that were not provided for Ed on his final days. But yeah, it just reminds me of the words of the CEO of Wikipedia.
The hard things, the places where we are prone to disagreement, say politics and religion. Well, as it turns out, not only does Wikipedia's model work there, it actually works really well. Because in our normal lives, these contentious conversations tend to erupt over disagreement about what the truth actually is. But the people who write these articles, they're not focused on the truth. They're focused on something else, which is the best of what we can know right now. And after 7 years of working with these brilliant folks, I've come to believe that they are onto something, that perhaps for our most tricky disagreements, seeking the truth and seeking to convince others of the truth might not be the right place to start. In fact, our reverence for the truth might be a distraction that's getting in the way of finding common ground and getting things done. Now, that is not to say that the truth doesn't exist, nor is it to say that the truth isn't important. Clearly, the search for the truth has led us to do great things, to learn great things. But I think if I were to really ask you to think about this, one of the things that we could all acknowledge is that part of the reason we have such glorious chronicles to the human experience in all forms of culture is because we acknowledge there are many different truths. And so in the spirit of that, I'm certain that the truth exists for you and probably for the person sitting next to you. But this may not be the same truth. This is because the truth of the matter is very often, for many people, what happens when we merge facts about the world with our beliefs about the world. So we all have different truths. They're based on things like where we come from, how we were raised, and how other people perceive us.
Catherine Marr, who was the current CEO of NPR, who used to run Wikimedia, which helped fund Wikipedia, believed that the truth is not the end goal of archiving information and data. And once you understand that Wikipedia's goal is not to archive truth, but to gatekeep it or to use it as a means to control the narrative, then the deletion of Alex de Campi's implied role in Piskor's passing becomes obvious. And I'm not even mad that this happened. I'm laughing because I don't know if it was because of the last upload that I did, but it seems like once word started getting around, the people had to react. They had to act on it and say, no, we got to remove this. We can't keep this here because libel laws of Wikipedia. And yes, if you look at Wikipedia's page, they actually say that they are liable for any legal action or any legal consequences for material that can be considered defamation. So I don't know if Wikipedia would allow it, or they have no choice but to remove it. And here's an interesting thing that they list here. They said that libelous content would also be removed from the page history meaning that if you go to the page history of say, for example, the Campi, you won't find any mention of the quote unquote offending information as per Wikipedia's libel policy. So therefore, if you go to look at the mention of her name by Piskor in that section, you're not going to find it as per Wikipedia's policy. So therefore, as far as Wikipedia is concerned, it never happened. So that exposure to truth is not going to be found on Alex Campi's page. And what little is mentioned in Ed Piskor's page, it's still going to be edited, because neither the Campi's name or Ramon Villalobos or Evan Dorkin, their names are not going to be mentioned at the second paragraph here, even though it does address Piskor's letter, but it doesn't address those names, and it won't address those names, despite the fact that it was Piskor himself who named them. So somehow quoting Piskor's own words in a document that he put out will be considered libelous. Or they're probably using the libel clause as a reason to remove it, to minimize the Campi's accountability in the situation. It's really amazing stuff. It's really silly and comedic for this to happen. But we witnessed it happen in real time. Absolutely happen in real time. It's almost comical when you think about it. Because I sort of expected it. I was surprised that it lasted as long as it did. But people started talking about it. And the last video is still getting engagement. People are still talking about it, especially now with the deletion of that section. So at the very least, now we know, now we do have concrete evidence that the Wikipedia article did include Piskor's mention. But what does that do for the conversation now? What does that do for the legacy going forward? We're a couple of days away from the 1-month anniversary of Piskor's passing. What has happened since then? It seems like the industry, the comic industry, is working real hard to just move away from that. Lately, Bounding Into Comics is getting a lot of heat from Piskor's fans and people demanding that Rich Johnson and Bounding Into Comics move to include articles about the Campi's role in the situation, as well as Ramon Villalobos, even taking Bounding Into Comics to task for hiding Ramon Villalobos' racism against white people. And I will give Rich Johnson this. When Bounding Into Comics published that article detailing the timeline of when Piskor was accused up until his passing, they actually included a lot of information. They actually gave a good timeline of events and were very specific. It didn't shy away from naming Molly Dwyer and Molly Wright. So they didn't shy away from that. So I give them credit for that article. And I even linked it in the Molly Dwyer video, where I talked about her comments and dissected it. And her comments are dissected both in that video as well as in my video on Molly Wright. So you can see both videos back to back, because they give the full story. And I also had a correction in the Molly Wright video regarding a comment I made about Molly Dwyer's statement. So it's always good to watch those two back to back so you can get a fuller story of it. But I understand that Bounding Into Comics might be in a bind because they're so tied to the industry. They're so tied to these peoples that, and we've seen the power they have, the influence they have. They've driven a man to death. They drove a man to death. So who knows what kind of influence behind the scenes that we're not seeing. I can't give Rich Johnson grief over it because we don't know. We know what we see from our perspective, but we're not knee deep in the mud with these people like Rich Johnson is. So who knows? The fact that he published what he did publish, to me, is a testament that he does want to put the truth out there. He does want to put facts and information out there. So I can't give him that kind of grief. And same thing with the UK, the Daily Mail article, where they were very, very vague in the storytelling and really lacked names and details about the situation. And you come to find out that UK has libel laws that make it very easy to sue the media in the UK for libel, so much so that you got to be vague in reporting something and not name names, which explains the whole Matt Petgrave, Adam Johnson thing, where Petgrave was not named in the article when he was clearly seen killing Adam Johnson. it's a weird time now when it comes to media and reporting, journalism. I mean, journalism, we can agree, is all but dead. You're not going to find respectable journalism in the mainstream. You're just not going to find it. There's no way, because it's framed by the sensitivity of those that are running it. Can you honestly say at this point that Wikipedia can even be trusted? Well, I mean, nobody believed that Wikipedia was a trustworthy source. Yeah, you can find articles in Wikipedia that have footnotes and sources that will link to other articles, and you can form a case of reputability with certain articles and certain subjects they touch on. But the fact that I knew in my gut of guts that they were going to remove the Piskor mention in Alex Campi's Wikipedia page, to me, is a testament of Wikipedia's commitment to subvert truth with feelings, emotions, and towing the line with the people that run it and the people that are funding it. I mean, the CEO went from Wikipedia to NPR. That's all you need to know about who's running Wikipedia and who's got the purse strings over there. That's all you need to know. So I can't be shocked. I can't be surprised at all that this happened. But that's the importance of documentation. That's the importance of you guys watching these videos and talking about it and spreading the word out there. Because who's documenting this stuff? Who's putting it out there? Outside of people like Richard C. Meyer, a.k.a. your boy Zach, who's putting this out there? Who's talking about it? You go on Twitter and the conversation has died down a bit. People are still publishing or promoting Alex Campi's work, despite the fact that she is now forever tied to the death of a comic professional. His words, not mine. That's according to Ed. Ed is the one who says that, not me. Obviously I don't know. All I know is that Ed is the one who put it out there that she, Alex Campi, and Ramon Villalobos, and Evan Dorkin, and Molly Wright, these are the people he named as the ones that pushed him to his death. And we've seen the passive-aggressive nature of these people since his passing. Well, we haven't seen Molly Wright because she disappeared, not shockingly enough, because of the fallout that she would receive for playing her part in defamation and slander. So it's weird when you look at that Wikipedia article on Ed that they reported that Molly Dwyer and Molly Wright made these accusations on Ed, but they won't report that Ed made his claim to Alex Campi on what he said about her. Again, it's about protecting the people that are controlling the purse strings. It's protecting the narrative, protecting the people that go along with the objectives of Wikipedia, which is not truth. It's not about truth. It's about feelings. Feelings and control. Mind control, brain control, whatever you want to call it. And they're all playing a part in it. Every single one of them. So, not surprised, and there's nothing more I can really say about it. It's just you just got to continue putting the information out there and just continuing documenting the exploits of these people and how they're treating this story, because how they're treating this story is going to really determine where this goes in terms of the comic industry. And I kept thinking on the drive home, when I was driving home from work today, and I thought about doing this video because I was getting comments from people, hey, they've already removed the controversy section on her Wikipedia page. And I kept thinking to myself, man, oh man, they're really giving me a lot of work here. I kept thinking about it, but I kept thinking to myself, oh man, like, this is really a dying industry. It's really on its last legs. I kept thinking about the floppies. I talked about it in my last video, how a gentleman in the convention that I was at yesterday wanted to trade a copy of my graphic novel for floppies. And I'm like, nobody wants floppies. Comics really are a disposable medium. It really is disposable. Unless you put it in a very nice presentable format, like a hardcover, chromium covers, omnibuses, things that have shelf value. Unless you put it like that, floppies have no value. Zero. And I think about these independents who put a lot of time and effort into the artwork that they're doing to make it seem prestige, like the art is the be-all, end-all of comics. And I'm thinking to myself, well, if the story is shit, no one's going to remember your art. A lot of hours spent on artwork on a page, and yet no one's going to remember it because the story attached to it has no resonance. And yet you can look at some more simplistic art by the likes of Charles Schultz or Percy Crosby, and you're like, those have more resonance. Not to say that good art doesn't have resonance. Don't get me wrong. It's just the focus is all wrong. People thinking, oh, we have to save the industry with good art. And it's like, no, you have to save the industry with IPs and stories that resonate. The art is one part of the whole. I kept thinking about that, and I kept thinking about nobody wants to own floppies. They're disposable. They're disposable. I keep saying they're disposable. You can't go to a comic book convention and see people buying comics because they don't want them. Think about it. One of the most sought after items at a comic book convention are not comics. It's either the Funko Pops. I don't know. I don't know what else to say. Like I saw it firsthand 2 years ago. I was at the same convention and I sold my entire table of stuff. I had a few books of my graphic novel that I sold off. I had some personal items that I sold off. There was a lot more people, a lot more enthusiasm. But this past Sunday, there was nothing. No enthusiasm. Not many people showed up. It really was a reflection of a dying industry. Alex Campi, Ramon Villalobos, these people are virtue signaling to a dying industry. They're signaling to a dwindling audience. They have killed the industry. It's only a matter of time until DC and Marvel liquidate or they start licensing out their characters. And people like the Campi and Villalobos and Dorkin, these people are going to be out of work. They're going to be out of the job. And then where do they go from there? Well, I can tell you this. They'll have an opportunity to reformat their lives somehow. They're activists, so they'll find something. They'll find a role somewhere because that's what activists do. They'll find a role somewhere. But you, the comic book fan, now you're left wondering, where do you go from here to fulfill your comic book needs? Where do you go? And that's a good question. And we do have an indie scene that is thriving somewhat, but they too are being hurt by downward sales because people are leaving. Even the indies are suffering. People are leaving. They're not funding comics anymore because of the drama that's infecting the indie scene as well. Creators bickering among each other, sex scandals now in the indies. You know, you have women trading sexual favors for comic book art or comic book jobs. Yeah, that's a thing now. It's happening, and people are leaving the indie scene as well. And the focus has to return to what made comics fun again. What was it that made comics fun? It wasn't the creator. It wasn't the man behind the book who is acting the fool or making themselves a influencer or a celebrity on social media. It's the characters that he creates, the character you create, the character that you write, that you put out there, that resonates with people that want to know more about him and want more adventures of that character or the stories that you provide. That's what we're lacking in the indie scene. We're not having those conversations. We're lacking those videos of people talking about characters that they love, the indie characters that we love so much. Very few videos like that exist, and that's a problem. It's a big problem. It's probably something I could talk about in a future video, but it is a huge problem. And all those things are factoring into the death of the comic industry, which I thought could one time be supplanted, or at the very least complemented by a thriving indie scene. Now I don't believe that anymore, and the indie scene is in danger. But what do you guys think? Let me know what you think about. Give me your thoughts, comments. I enjoy reading your thoughts and comments, so please keep it up. And I will talk to you in the next video. Check me out at roadwarriordrake.com. My graphic novel, Beast Citizen Road Warrior Drake, currently in production. You can also get the first book, Street Champion Road Warrior Drake. It's going to be a series of 3 graphic novels that will span the life of the character in his time in Skullkill. So definitely check it out. And I will talk to you guys soon. Thank you very much and have a great day. Take care.